Hi everybody, welcome to Quilt Lit 101. So this is a program that I wrote. It was supposed to be ran as a block of the month for quilt stores, but then, stuff happened and decided to do this online. So what's going to happen, just to give you some upkeeping of what we're going to do, is we are going to go through one block every 2 weeks, and this is great for beginners. So if you're just starting out to learn how to quilt, I'm going to walk you through how to piece and how to do some things that will, just give you some confidence where you can start even designing your own quilts. So this is the first block. It's called the Hobbit block. But to backtrack just a second and look at some of the fabric requirements for the whole program. So hopefully you've already downloaded the fabric requirements, but I just want to walk through them really quick just to talk about them for a second. So let me switch over so that you can see those. So you'll see that this was designed with Kona cotton solid colors. Now, I designed that because it's a very modern look, but there is nothing to say that you can't use your own choices. You're going to need 10 different fabrics. You'll need at least a half a yard of most of them if you're going to do a one block. If you're going to double the blocks and make some of the layouts that I've shown you at the beginning in the fabric requirement instructions that you downloaded, just think that you'll need a little bit more than half a yard. But I tried to keep the fabrics. One thing I want to make sure that you understand when you're looking at the instructions is that the fabrics are coated by a black and white kind of pattern, and then they'll have a number next to them. Now, and then I've given you what that color is. So, for example, the first one is kind of a solid gray color, and it's fabric number 1, and it's ice frappe, and that's the solid Kona color. Now, what I want you to think about is that will always be throughout the rest of the program. Number 1 will always be ice frappe. So it's real easy for you to substitute your own colors in there or your own fabric choices in there, because I consistently use fabric number 1 and that gray. Anytime that I've used ice frappe color, it's always going to have that gray in the layout of the block, so that it's real easy for you to follow. So I just wanted you to make sure that you understand that. So it's going to make this other part more palatable or easier to understand when I start talking about the blocks, because not all the blocks have all the colors in them, of course, and because of that I wanted to make sure that some blocks only, like this one, only uses color 1, 5, 6, and 7, so it doesn't even have color number 3 in it. So that's just a way for you to kind of follow along and make sure that you understand what's going on when we get to the other blocks. So wanted to get through that. The other thing is, so wanted to make sure you guys got that so that would make sense. But the other thing is, and I'm switching this over really quick, the other thing is that when you join the program, you can watch this online and I'll show you the stuff. But if you really want to support and get involved, you can do the pattern is in the link below. And you can just get the pattern in. It's got all the instructions in case this one you missed this or something. So the overhead is going to show you, this is our first block, and it is the block of the month. It's the first block that we're doing. Now, I called this Quilt Lit 101 because I like books. So when I wrote this, I actually attached books to each block, and then I have fun like trivia questions with each block so that you can, if you're a reader and you like this book, read it. If you don't like the book, don't read it. It's not a big deal. So, but this is the Hobbit block. Hobbit's one of my favorite books. It's actually some of my favorite movies as well. But you'll notice this is what we're going to be learning how to do. So we've got four patches, and then this little strip right here with a center stone, to make our little cross looking. And the 4 patches are arranged where the predominant crocus color, and I think this is color number 6, crocus color is kind of surrounding, makes kind of a circle-y look to it. So it gives you that different look. Now, if you turn these blocks where they go out this way, it's going to give you a different look. So just be mindful of how we're placing these when we sew them. All right, so just to go over the colors really quick. So the first one is the fabric, number 1. This is the Ice Frappe color, Kona color. And that we will need to cut. The number 5 color is what we call Dusty Peach, according to Kona. And that's this block right here, this little color right here. Then we have number 6, which is Crocus. And then we have number 7, which is Melon. Okay? So the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to, when you get the instructions, it'll have the instructions and then it'll have how to cut and assemble it. But this first part is what colors you're going to be using. And this you can get when you get the pattern. This you can get for that, but it does have kind of fun questions about Gollum and Middle Earth, why quilters would use Middle Earth. And maybe we'll go over those later, but I want to teach you how to do the block first. So I did put instructions in here for doing, either if you're doing 1 block, how much you need to cut, compared to doing 2 blocks, how much you need to cut. And that you would just depend on what layout you wanted to do in the end. So, and you can look at those and decide. Now, all right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to cut from fabric number 1, which is your Ice Frappe fabric, which is this right here. You're going to cut some 2.5 by 4.5 inch strips. So you'll need 4 of those, okay? And then you're going to cut 1 2.5 by 2.5 melon, which is your fabric number 7. And that's the melon color right there. Then I cut... and it's because I'm using yardage, but I cut a 2.5 inch of your Crocus and a 2.5 inch of your Dusty Peach. And then that I'm going to cut down into segments. And I'm pretty sure it's like 2.5 by 21 inches will give you enough. So you're going to cut to a long strip of those. Now the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to sew down one side of this. This needs to be pressed, but you're going to sew down one side of this with the 1/4 inch seam, of course, and then that is going to get you something that would look more like this, right? With the stitching already done. Okay, now that you've sewn down the stitching on both the 2.5 inch strips, you're going to iron that. And I always press to the dark. Now your instructions will say press the seams open. There is good reason for you to do that, but there's also good reason for you to do it this way. So, you know, you can do it either way. I know a lot of modern quilters like to press their seams open. I'm not one of those. So anyway, you're going to press that seam open, and I'm just going to finger press it. Although you could really use an iron and you would edge that back and you would press that open. Now, this should be 4.5 inches wide this way. If your 1/4 inch seam is correct, this is 4.5 inches wide. You are going to subcut that into the 2.5 by 4.5 inches. All right. And the reason that you subcut that is you will get these, right? So we're working on this 4 patch, right? Okay. So once you have all the sections of these, and you're going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those, right? Because we're counting those. I need 8. Is I'm going to turn them opposite each other, and then I'm going to put that face to face, and then I'm going to sew this together in my 1/4 inch seam, right? Now, the thing about this is, because I've pressed to the dark side, if you will look, I can snug those seams together, and when I snug those seams together, that will make sure that I get that really perfect point that I'm wanting to get when I press it back open. See how those corners just meet just exactly the way I want them to? Now, because I've pressed this to the dark side all the way around, it allows me to press this open. Do you see how I made this little 4 patch inside? All I'm doing is I'm taking one edge and I'm pressing that back. And this takes the bulk out of the seam that you would have if you left it like this. That does have a little bit of bulk there, but if I press that open like that, you'll notice that that gives me the little spin. You've heard people call it a spin. So that spins that open, and then I press that, and then that gives me a really nice seam there. Now you're going to continue to do that. Okay, to where you're going to make 4 of these. Okay, I'm going to leave that right there so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to make 4 of these really quick, right? I would press this together. Now, notice this is not laid out for me the way I need it laid out. Da-da-da. Okay, because I always match, I always have a picture next to me or the book or whatever, and I'm matching that, so I'm making sure I'm doing it right. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go back and grab those, right, ice frappe things that we made. And you are going to sew So now you're going to sew this to this. You're going to sew the ice frappe because this is already made because you've got 4 of these, right? You're going to sew this to this. Then you're going to sew, and you can do this you can do this other ways too. You're going to sew this to this and this to this. So you have 3 strips. And then when I get that done, right, here's my bottom. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Then I'm going to sew this top strip to this strip, right? I will sew this to this. And then I would sew this to this. So I was sewing everything to the middle strip. And that is how you make your first block, right? So really easy. The only thing you've got to be accurate about is when you cut your blocks, make sure you're cutting so that that is going to show you a 2.5 inch strip. Now, when you're done with this whole thing should measure 10.5 inches because we're making 10.5 inch blocks. Okay? So that's your first block. Go and do it. It's not hard. I think you're going to find it super simple. And then come back in 2 weeks and we will have the next block, which I think is Alice in Wonderland, because I love that as well. So, and we will talk about the next block. So, happy stitching, and we will talk to you soon.